The chamber of the Galactic Concordium had stood unshaken for 12 million cycles. Empires had risen beneath its vaulted stars. Civilizations had gone extinct while its crystalline pillars continued to glow. War declarations had echoed through its gravity-bound air like ceremonial thunder. But never, never had it fallen silent like this. At the center of the chamber floated the holographic projection of a human colony world. Burning. Oceans boiled into steam. Continents split under orbital bombardment. The emblem of the Vrax Imperium flickered across the destruction like a signature carved in fire. A murmur rippled through the gathered species. At the highest tier, ancient and unmoving, stood the elder of the Ketheri Dominion. His species had witnessed the birth of stars. They did not tremble. Yet his voice, when it came, carried something dangerously close to it. You mistake restraint for weakness. Across the chamber, the Vrax warlord flexed armored limbs, unrepentant. They were warned. The territory was contested. The projection shifted. Now it showed humans evaluating children. Human medics shielding alien refugees. Human soldiers holding a defensive line they knew would fail. No retaliation. No counterstrike. Only one final transmission escaping the dying atmosphere. We asked for peace. The chamber lights flickered. A new projection appeared, dozens of Vrax frontier systems blinking red. Then black. No explosion. No debris. Just absence. The elder lowered his gaze upon the council. Humanity does not rage as we do, he said quietly. It remembers. Another Vrax system vanished from the star map. Then another. And as the first screams of panic began to echo through the immortal chamber, the elder spoke the words the galaxy would spend the next century regretting. You should have listened. Long before the first Vrax warship fired upon a human colony, the galaxy had already decided what humanity was worth. The Galactic Concordium was not a democracy. It was a hierarchy disguised as one. Power belonged to those who had endured the longest, conquered the most systems, or commanded the largest fleets. Respect was measured in dreadnought tonnage and planetary tribute. And humanity had neither. When Earth was admitted into the Concordium, it was categorized as a Class 3 emerging species. Promising. Energetic. Industrious. Harmless. They had arrived not with armadas, but with trade proposals. Not with conquest fleets, but with cultural exchanges. Not with ultimatums, but with treaties. The dominant powers watched them with faint amusement. The Vrax Imperium, whose territory spanned nearly a spiral arm, dismissed them as soft-boned primates barely removed from atmospheric confinement. The Silith Collective, a distributed hive intelligence, logged humanity as emotionally inefficient. Even the ancient Ketheri Dominion, observers older than most civilizations still alive, regarded them with distant curiosity rather than concern. Human diplomats smiled too much. They negotiated compromises. They insisted on protections for minor species no one else considered strategically valuable. They sent medical ships into plague zones. They rebuilt worlds struck by stellar storms without demanding annexation. It was strange behavior. In a galaxy where survival favored ruthlessness, humanity practiced restraint. In a council where threats were currency, humans offered cooperation. And so they became useful. Their technology, adaptable and modular, was licensed widely. Their engineers were sought after. Their terraforming methods were efficient. Their agricultural systems thrived in marginal biospheres. They were the galaxy's problem solvers. But not its warriors. The Vrax Imperium in particular found them amusing. Vrax culture revered dominance. Strength was proven through subjugation. Territory was claimed through visible superiority. Humanity claimed territory through paperwork. Worse, humans had boundaries. They insisted on clearly defined borders around their colonies, backed not by fleets but by treaties ratified through the Concordium's slow bureaucratic machine. Paper shields, one Vrax commander famously scoffed during a council assembly. They believed signatures stopped plasma. Laughter followed. Humanity did not respond with outrage. They responded with data. Economic growth reports. Joint scientific initiatives. Mutual defense proposals that were politely declined. The Concordium categorized them as ideal intermediaries, diplomatic, adaptable, optimistic. But beneath that optimism lay something most species failed to recognize. Human history was not peaceful. It was saturated with conflict. Global wars. Cold wars balanced on nuclear annihilation. Civilizations collapsing and reforming in cycles of fire and rebuilding. Humans had nearly destroyed themselves more than once and survived every time. They had fought wars not just against external enemies, but against ideologies, scarcity, disease, and even their own worst impulses. Yet by the time they reached the stars, they had chosen a different path. Cooperation over conquest. Restraint over retaliation. But restraint is not the absence of power. It is the decision not to use it. Only one species in the Concordium seemed to understand this distinction. High above the political floor of the chamber, the elder of the Ketheri Dominion observed the humans carefully. The Ketheri had seen civilizations rise with brilliant violence before collapsing under their own aggression. They had witnessed empires that conquered half the galaxy only to fragment within centuries. But humanity was different. They did not seek to dominate. They sought to endure. And endurance, the elder knew, was far more dangerous. During one private session, a junior Ketheri asked why the elder watched the humans so closely. The elder's response was recorded in Ketheri archives, though never shared with the Concordium. Every era births a species that alters the trajectory of the stars. Not the strongest. Not the oldest. But the one most capable of adaptation. The junior inquired whether humanity fit that pattern. The elder did not answer immediately. He simply turned his gaze toward the human delegation chamber, where laughter echoed as Terran diplomats finalized a trade accord with 3 minor species. They have survived themselves, the elder finally said. And in a galaxy where most civilizations were undone by their own excess, that fact alone should have been warning enough. But the galaxy was not listening. It was laughing. The first strike came without declaration. Orion Colony was not a fortress world. It was an agricultural settlement orbiting a modest yellow star at the outer edge of human-controlled space. Its skies were wide, its oceans shallow and warm. Terraforming drones still worked the northern hemisphere, carefully adjusting atmospheric density to Terran standards. There were no heavy defense platforms. No war fleets stationed in orbit. Only 3 patrol cruisers and a civilian traffic network. Which was precisely why the Vrax Imperium chose it. The Vrax did not call it an invasion. They called it resource reclamation under territorial ambiguity protocol. To the Concordium, it was paperwork. To Orion Colony, it was fire from the sky. Vrax warships tore from hyperspace in perfect military formation, black holes edged with ion flares. They transmitted a single notice demanding evacuation within 1 planetary rotation. Then they opened fire before the deadline expired. Orbital bombardment is rarely precise. It is designed to break infrastructure and morale simultaneously. Cities cracked. Ocean vapor spiraled into the upper atmosphere. Emergency shelters activated too late for millions. The 3 human patrol cruisers attempted defensive maneuvers. 2 were destroyed within minutes. The third transmitted a distress signal across the Concordium relay network before its reactor went critical. Across human space, the signal arrived in fragments, static, screaming, then silence. On Earth, the Human Defense Council convened within 11 minutes. They did not declare war. They requested emergency session access to the Galactic Concordium. The chamber filled quickly. Representatives projected in from 1,000 systems. The Vrax warlord appeared calm, armored plating polished to ceremonial sheen. The system was contested, the warlord stated. Human expansion exceeded negotiated tolerance thresholds. The human ambassador, Ambassador Elena Marquez, stood alone at her podium. Her voice did not tremble. Orion Colony was registered through proper Concordium channels. Its coordinates were ratified by this body. She gestured. The holographic star map shifted, displaying official documentation, timestamps, and compliance markers. The Vrax warlord tilted his head slightly. Documentation does not equate to enforcement. A murmur passed through the chamber. Several minor species expressed concern. The Silith collective pulsed neutrally, analyzing probabilities. The Ketheri Dominion remained silent. Ambassador Marquez inhaled slowly. 17 million civilians were present on Orion Colony, she said. Our evacuation corridors were targeted. The Vrax warlord's response was immediate. Collateral consequence. The phrase echoed longer than it should have. Humanity did not demand vengeance. They demanded investigation. They requested a ceasefire. They submitted a formal petition for reparations review under Concordium law. The motion stalled in committee. Procedural delays were common. The Concordium moved with glacial caution, particularly when powerful empires were involved. 3 days later, humanity dispatched relief fleets to Orion's neighboring systems, medical ships, reconstruction vessels, refugee transports. They traveled unarmed. 2 of those fleets never arrived. Vrax interceptors engaged them at the edge of the disputed sector. The justification was identical: territorial enforcement. This time, the attacks were not broadcast live. But fragments leaked. Footage of human medics shielding alien agricultural workers. Transmissions of Terran captains ordering non-combatant evacuation even as their hulls breached. One final message escaped before the signal collapsed. We are humanitarian vessels. We are not armed. Silence followed. Back in the Concordium chamber, Ambassador Marquez returned. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but her posture remained steady. We are not asking for vengeance, she said. Her gaze swept the assembly. We are asking for justice. The Vrax warlord gave something approximating a smile. Justice, he repeated, is defined by strength. A few species shifted uncomfortably. But none moved to sanction the Imperium. Not yet. The vote to censure the Vrax failed by a narrow margin. Several influential systems abstained, unwilling to provoke conflict with a military superpower over what they deemed a peripheral dispute. The session adjourned. Humanity withdrew from the chamber without further statement. The silence that followed felt different this time. Not wounded. Measured. In the high observation tier, the elder of the Ketheri Dominion finally spoke, not to the full council, but to his inner advisory circle. They strike without understanding the pattern, he said softly. A junior Ketheri asked what pattern he meant. The elder's gaze lingered on the darkened projection of Orion Colony. Humans endure loss differently, he replied. They record it. Far from the political theater of the Concordium, within the Sol system, encrypted communications surged between human worlds. Defense budgets were quietly reallocated. Shipyards shifted production priorities. Research divisions unlocked sealed contingency protocols decades in development. There was no public declaration. No war speech broadcast to the stars. Only one brief transmission sent from Earth to every registered human colony. Stand by. Across the galaxy, most species interpreted the message as defensive caution. The Vrax interpreted it as fear. Only the elder of the Ketheri Dominion understood what it truly signified. Humanity had stopped asking. And when a species that has survived its own extinction-level war stops asking, it starts preparing. The emergency convocation of the Galactic Concordium was not called by humanity. It was called by the Ketheri Dominion. That alone unsettled the chamber. The Ketheri did not involve themselves in disputes unless the outcome threatened galactic equilibrium. Ancient beyond reliable record, their civilization had witnessed the rise and collapse of empires long before the Vrax Imperium had achieved interstellar travel. They were historians, observers, archivists of catastrophe. And now their elders stood at the center dais. The chamber dimmed. A spiral galaxy rotated above them in holographic projection, civilizations marked as luminous points scattered across its arms. This, the elder began, his voice resonant and slow, is not the first era of dominance. The projection shifted. Empires long extinct flared brightly, then faded into darkness. Every 10,000 cycles, a species ascends with overwhelming momentum. They conquer. They expand. They impose order through strength. The image zoomed in on several former hegemonic powers, names spoken in reverent whispers across history. Each believed their supremacy permanent. The lights marking those empires extinguished one by one. They were wrong. A low ripple of unease moved through the assembly. The Vrax warlord shifted but did not interrupt. The elder continued. There exists a pattern older than any of us. It is not the strongest species that reshapes the galaxy. Not the oldest. Not even the most technologically advanced. The projection changed again, this time highlighting a small, recently illuminated cluster along the Orion Spur. Human territory. It is the most adaptable. A murmur. The Silith collective pulsed analytical queries into the chamber network. Minor species leaned forward. The elder extended a slender limb, and the projection fractured into dozens of scenes, human historical archives retrieved from open cultural databases. Ice ages survived. Global pandemics overcome. 2 world wars that nearly consumed their planet. Nuclear brinkmanship halted at the edge of extinction. Civil unrest. Economic collapse. Reconstruction. Again and again. They have fought themselves, the elder said quietly. And endured. The Vrax warlord finally spoke. They are divided primates who barely unified their own world. Their military output is inferior. Their fleets are smaller. Their biology fragile. The elder turned his gaze upon him. And yet they remain. Silence pressed against the chamber walls. Understand this, the elder continued. A species that survives internal annihilation develops a trait rare among the stars. He paused deliberately. Restraint. The word carried unexpected weight. Humans do not escalate immediately. They negotiate. They tolerate. They absorb. Images of humanitarian missions appeared, human ships aiding plague-stricken systems, evaluating refugees from stellar disasters, rebuilding minor species infrastructure without annexation. They calculate cost, the elder said. They measure consequence. The projection shifted again. Now it displayed Orion Colony. Burning. 17 million dead. Then the destroyed relief fleets. Their tolerance has limits. The chamber grew colder. In previous cycles, the elder said, when an adaptable species was pushed beyond its threshold, the result was not chaotic rage. The hologram displayed extinct empires collapsing in rapid succession. It was precision. The Vrax warlord's voice hardened. Are you suggesting the Imperium fears retaliation? I am suggesting, the elder replied evenly, that you misunderstand what retaliation from humanity would resemble. A junior Vrax commander scoffed audibly. They have made no declaration of war. Exactly, the elder said. That single word echoed louder than any shout. They have closed diplomatic channels, he continued. Withdrawn trade delegations. Recalled deep-range exploration vessels. Data streams populated the chamber, human fleets repositioning, supply lines consolidating, research divisions activating classified energy signatures. They are not reacting, the elder said. They are preparing. The Vrax warlord rose to full height, armored plating scraping against ceremonial metal. The Imperium does not yield to veiled threats. This is not a threat, the elder replied softly. It is a warning. He dimmed the projections with a gesture. You believe their compassion weakness. Their diplomacy cowardice. their patient submission. His gaze swept the chamber, lingering on species that had abstained from sanctioned votes. You mistake restraint for incapacity. The lights returned to normal intensity. The session was formally adjourned moments later. Many dismissed the elder's words as caution born of age. The Vrax Imperium did not alter its posture. Within 48 standard hours, a second Vrax strike force mobilized toward a human border system. In the high observation tier, the elder watched the fleet departure signatures register across the Galactic network. His advisors waited for comment. After a long silence, the elder spoke only 5 words. They were just given mercy. And the galaxy, once again, chose not to listen. The second Vrax strike never reached its target. It arrived in the Callus Corridor, a narrow stretch of interstellar space marking the edge of human territory, only to find it empty. No patrol ships. No defensive platforms. No mining stations. The system had been evaluated. At first, the Vrax interpreted it as fear. Long-range scans detected abandoned orbital infrastructure and deactivated satellites. Civilian habitats were powered down. Even automated beacons had gone dark. The Vrax commander transmitted a declaration of territorial acquisition and withdrew without resistance. Victory without battle. The Imperium celebrated. Across the galaxy, something else was happening. Human embassies began closing. One by one. The Terran delegation chambers inside the Galactic Concordium dimmed. Their holographic projectors deactivated. Their data uplinks went offline. Official statements cited strategic reassessment. Trade convoys halted mid-route and turned back toward Sol-controlled space. Joint research initiatives were suspended. Human engineering teams embedded within alien megastructures quietly packed their equipment and departed. To most species, it looked like retreat. To the observant, it felt like containment. Within the Sol system, traffic surged instead of diminished. Shipyards that had once produced modular freighters shifted to heavier hull configurations. Asteroid mining operations redirected raw materials toward classified orbital facilities. Energy consumption across Luna and Mars spiked beyond civilian demand projections. Encrypted communications multiplied. No war speech was broadcast. No triumphant rhetoric filled human networks. There was no visible anger. Only silence. In the Concordium chamber, debate intensified. The Silith Collective presented probability matrices suggesting a 73% chance of large-scale human mobilization within 2 cycles. Several minor species expressed concern over supply chain disruptions caused by human withdrawal. Entire planetary ecosystems depended on Terran agricultural exports. The Vrax Imperium, however, remained dismissive. They posture, the Vrax warlord declared during open session. They lacked the fleet mass for sustained conflict. The data supported him on the surface. Human fleet numbers had not increased dramatically. There were no visible armadas amassing at their borders. No warships gathering in dramatic formations. Instead, humanity's military assets dispersed. Patrol vessels vanished into deep space corridors. Research platforms relocated beyond mapped trade routes. Several small stars near human territory registered anomalous energy readings, brief, intense spikes that faded before Concordium sensors could triangulate their source. Requests for clarification went unanswered. For the first time since their arrival on the galactic stage, humanity stopped explaining itself. In private Ketheri archives, the Elder reviewed human historical doctrine. One Terran phrase appeared repeatedly across centuries of military theory. Speak softly and carry a big stick. The Elder translated it for his advisory circle. They prepare power in silence, he said. A junior Ketheri inquired whether intervention was possible. No, the Elder replied. The threshold has passed. Beyond political chambers and military projections, the human public remained eerily calm. No mass riots. No xenophobic purges. No declarations of species-wide hatred. Memorials were held for Orion Colony. Names were read aloud across Earth, Mars, and the Jovian habitats. 17 million names. Each recorded. Each remembered. Then, the broadcasts ended. In their place came a single transmission from Earth's Unified Defense Command. It was brief, less than 10 seconds, and transmitted only to human colonies. Stand by for directive Aegis. No further clarification followed. Deep within classified research vaults beneath Luna's surface, contingency protocols long theorized but never activated were unlocked. Gravitational field manipulation arrays powered up for the first time at full scale. Quantum communication relays shifted to encrypted wartime architecture. Autonomous fleet algorithms transitioned from defensive modeling to offensive scenario execution. Still, no declaration of war. No dramatic mobilization visible to the wider galaxy. Just a gradual, methodical reconfiguration of human civilization toward something colder. In the Concordium chamber, the Vrax warlord requested recognition. The Imperium acknowledges Terran withdrawal, he said, almost amused. The matter is concluded. High above, in the observation tier, the elder of the Ketheri Dominion watched the star map flicker as new data points appeared, subtle gravitational anomalies near Vrax frontier systems. He closed his eyes briefly. For the first time, he murmured to his advisors, humanity is no longer asking to be heard. On the galactic display, one faint Vrax border star blinked unexpectedly. Then stabilized. Most dismissed it as sensor error. The elder did not. Silence, he said softly, is not surrender. It is calculation. The Vrax frontier system of Corthal Prime had stood for 4 centuries. It was not merely a military outpost, it was a symbol. Shipyards orbited its primary gas giant. Orbital cannons ringed its inhabited worlds. Its defense grid was considered impenetrable by conventional assault. Which was why no one expected it to disappear. The first sign of anomaly came from a long-range trade vessel passing 3 systems away. Its navigation array recalibrated unexpectedly, compensating for a slight shift in gravitational alignment. Minor. Almost ignorable. Then the Vrax relay buoy at Corthal Prime stopped transmitting. At first, it was assumed to be maintenance failure. Then the secondary relay failed. Then every signal originating from the system ceased simultaneously. No distress call. No combat telemetry. No debris signatures. Nothing. When an automated probe was dispatched from a neighboring Vrax sector, it arrived to find something impossible. The star was still there. But everything else was gone. The shipyards, gone. The orbital cannons, gone. The defense grid, gone. Even several planetary masses had shifted position, as if space itself had been subtly rewritten. The inhabited worlds remained intact. Cities undamaged. Civilian infrastructure untouched. But every military installation, every weapons platform, every warship dock, every command center had vanished without residue. The probe transmitted visual confirmation to the Vrax Imperium. Silence followed. In the Galactic Concordium, the news spread like static across a broken network. The Vrax warlord demanded explanation. There was none. Sensor analysis revealed no conventional energy spike large enough to account for the scale of destruction. No hyperspace rupture. No antimatter detonation. No singularity event. Just absence. The Silith Collective ran simulations at maximum processing capacity. Probability matrices fractured under incomplete variables. Then a second Vrax frontier system blinked out. This time, it was recorded live. Long-range observatories captured a distortion forming near the system's outer boundary, a ripple in spacetime, subtle and precise. It expanded inward, not violently, but methodically. Military satellites winked out first. Then orbital docks. Then the fleet stationed in high orbit, 23 capital ships, ceased to exist as if erased from the equation of reality. The ripple never touched the planetary surfaces. It did not scorch atmospheres. It did not shatter continents. It ended threats. And then it was gone. In the ruins of what had once been a Vrax command hub, a single transmission beacon activated, human origin. The message was short. This is for Orion Colony. No signature. No fleet declaration. No demand for surrender. Just consequence. Panic rippled through Vrax-controlled space. Frontier admirals initiated defensive dispersal protocols. Fleets scattered, hoping mobility would provide protection. It did not. The third system fell within the cycle. This time, Vrax ships attempted to flee at the first sign of gravitational distortion. They were too slow. Whatever mechanism humanity had unleashed did not travel through hyperspace lanes or conventional sublight trajectories. It manifested. Precision beyond known physics. Measured beyond emotional impulse. Back in the Concordium chamber, chaos replaced debate. Minor species projected fearful queries. Trade coalitions demanded emergency session votes. The Vrax warlord roared accusations of illegal superweapons and demanded collective retaliation. The human delegation chamber remained dark. No ambassador appeared. No justification was offered. High in the observation tier, the elder of the Ketheri Dominion observed the unfolding data streams. His advisors processed the gravitational readings with growing alarm. "It is not random," one of them whispered. "No," the elder agreed. "It is selective. Every erased target shared common traits. Military significance. Direct involvement in Orion operations. Strategic value to future aggression. Nothing more. Nothing less." The elder closed his eyes briefly, recalling ancient cycles when adaptable species had crossed the threshold of tolerance. "They do not seek annihilation," he murmured. "They seek correction." In Vrax space, emergency war councils convened. The Imperium attempted to trace the origin of the spatial distortions. All vectors pointed nowhere. There were no detectable human fleets in proximity. No armadas massing at borders. No visible war machine. Humanity had not invaded. They had reached across interstellar distance and removed specific pieces from the board. The fourth Vrax system did not even have time to send a preliminary alert. One moment it existed. The next, its military infrastructure was gone. By the end of the cycle, 5 frontier strongholds had fallen. 5 symbols of Vrax dominance, erased with surgical precision. For the first time in recorded history, the Imperium's expansion halted. Not because it chose to, but because it was forced to. In the Concordium chamber, the Vrax warlord demanded unified military response against humanity. Few answered. The evidence was undeniable. Humanity was not attacking indiscriminately. They were enforcing boundaries. Measured. Controlled. Intentional. Another notification flashed across the galactic star map. A 6th Vrax military staging ground blinked red. Then black. The chamber fell silent. In the darkness of the human delegation wing, power briefly flickered. A single line of text appeared across the Concordium's shared diplomatic channel. "We asked for peace." And somewhere along the Orion spur, unseen and undetected, humanity continued its calculations. By the time the 7th Vrax military system fell, the galaxy stopped calling it coincidence. They began calling it doctrine. Emergency intelligence briefings flooded the galactic Concordium. Analysts from the Silith Collective presented updated projections. Human strategic modeling extended back nearly 3 decades. Quiet infrastructure investments. Gravitational research grants. Deep space construction projects masked as civilian expansion. This was not retaliation born of rage. This was preparation executed on schedule. Within sealed archives, fragments of human military philosophy surfaced, translated from Terran historical databases. One principle appeared repeatedly. Proportional response ensures sustainable peace. Human vengeance, it seemed, was not emotional combustion. It was mathematics. A classified human transmission was intercepted near the edge of former Vrax territory. It was not meant for public channels, but fragments were decoded before encryption collapsed. A human fleet commander addressed an unseen audience. His voice was steady. "We do not burn worlds," he said. "We end threats." Behind him, a star field shimmered, Vrax space mapped in tactical overlays. "Our objective is not extinction," he continued. "It is equilibrium." The recording terminated abruptly. In the Concordium chamber, debate fractured into fear. How do they strike without fleets? One minor species demanded. How do they project force without presence? The answer lay in what humanity had pursued quietly while negotiating trade agreements and cultural exchanges. Gravitational engineering. For centuries, humans had studied stellar mass manipulation, initially for terraforming unstable systems, redirecting asteroids, stabilizing planetary orbits. Publicly, it was framed as environmental adaptation technology. Privately, contingency simulations explored another application. Localized gravitational collapse. Not large enough to trigger supernovae. Not violent enough to destabilize inhabited biospheres. But precise enough to crush orbital infrastructure, shear ship hulls, and destabilize artificial constructs at the molecular level. Weaponized astrophysics. The genius of it was not its power. It was its restraint. Every Vrax system targeted shared three variables. Confirmed involvement in Orion's destruction. Military infrastructure density above 78%. Civilian casualty projection under 0.02%. Humanity had calculated vengeance the way they once calculated nuclear deterrence on Earth. Mutually assured destruction had taught them a brutal lesson: escalation without limit leads to extinction. So they redesigned escalation. In Ketheri Observation Archives, the Elder replayed footage from ancient human conflicts, World War II, reconstructed from Terran data, the Cold War doctrine of mutually assured destruction, the Geneva Conventions restricting warfare conduct. They codified restraint even while waging total war, the Elder murmured. A junior advisor asked the question echoing across the galaxy. Why not destroy the Imperium entirely? They possessed the capability. The Elder's eyes reflected distant stars. Because annihilation creates power vacuums, he replied. Humans understand unintended consequences. Indeed, analysis revealed something even more unsettling. Human predictive algorithms had forecasted the Vrax strike on Orion nearly 6 years prior. Economic tensions. Border rhetoric. Military posturing patterns. Humanity had not prevented the attack. They had prepared for it. Shipyards built beneath lunar regolith were not emergency expansions, they were contingency facilities. Energy spikes near Sol were not panic reactions, they were activation thresholds. The silence following Orion's fall had not been shock. It had been transition. The truth settled heavily across the Concordium. Humanity had absorbed the first blow deliberately. Not because they were weak, but because absorbing it granted legitimacy. Now, every strike they executed was defensible under Concordium law as proportional counterforce. Brilliant. Terrifying. Measured. Within Vrax space, desperation grew. Imperial fleets attempted preemptive strikes into suspected human sectors. They found nothing. Human fleets remained elusive, distributed, mobile, hidden behind layers of gravitational distortion fields. Human warfare did not require dramatic fleet engagements. It required coordinates. A Vrax admiral transmitted a final defiant message before his command platform vanished. "You fight like cowards," he roared. Moments later, his military array compressed into gravitational singularity and ceased to exist. Back in the Concordium chamber, a new transmission appeared, this time authorized. Humanity had reopened a diplomatic channel. The chamber darkened as Ambassador Elena Marquez reappeared on the central dais. Her expression was calm. "You mistook our patience for incapacity," she said. You mistook our diplomacy for surrender. She paused, letting the weight settle. We are not conquerors. The star map behind her highlighted only Vrax military systems. We are not exterminators. Civilian Vrax worlds glowed untouched. We are correctors. The chamber remained silent. Our actions will cease when the threat ceases, she concluded. Withdraw from contested human space. Submit to reparations arbitration. Stand down your expansion fleets. Her gaze hardened, not with fury, but certainty. Or we will continue. The transmission ended. In the high observation tier, the elder of the Ketheri Dominion inclined his head slightly. Now, he whispered, they understand. Human vengeance was not chaos. It was consequence calculated across decades. And the galaxy was only beginning to grasp how long humanity had been preparing to enforce it. The 8th Vrax military system did not fall. It surrendered. For the first time since the crisis began, a Vrax admiral transmitted on an open Concordium frequency before the gravitational distortions formed. This system declares non-aggression toward Terran space, he said, voice strained but controlled. All offensive fleets are withdrawing beyond prior contested coordinates. Across the star map, human targeting indicators, visible only as faint probability shadows in Concordium analytics, faded from that system. It remained intact. That was when the galaxy understood. Humanity was not executing blind vengeance. They were responding to posture. Systems that maintained offensive readiness vanished. Systems that de-escalated survived. The realization spread faster than panic ever had. Minor species along the Orion Spur began issuing public statements of support for Terran arbitration demands. Several released archived trade agreements showing that humanity had consistently honored defense pacts, even when doing so cost them economically. The Silith Collective updated its projections. Probability of full-scale galactic war dropped from 64% to 18%. New variable introduced, human deterrent stability. Within the Galactic Concordium, the political center fractured. Delegations that had abstained during the initial censure vote now pushed for emergency sanctions against the Vrax Imperium. Economic blocs threatened trade embargoes. Neutral systems quietly opened encrypted channels to Earth, seeking assurances. The Vrax warlord appeared again in the chamber, no longer armored for ceremony, but for war. This is coercion, he declared. They destabilized the balance of power. From the upper tier, the elder of the Ketheri Dominion responded without rising. The balance of power shifted the moment Orion burned. Silence followed. Because everyone now understood what the elder had warned weeks earlier. Humanity had not escalated emotionally. They had escalated structurally. Vrax logistics networks were collapsing. With frontier shipyards erased, supply lines stretched thin. Military production fell behind replacement rates. Fleets once deployed aggressively were now recalled defensively. And each recall signaled compliance. Each compliance reduced human strikes. The pattern was undeniable. Humanity was shaping behavior. A minor avian species, long bullied by Vrax expansion, requested protective oversight from Earth. Within hours, a Terran envoy acknowledged receipt and offered arbitration guarantees. Not military occupation. Not annexation. Guarantees. That distinction mattered. Across the mid-rim sectors, other small polities followed. They did not view humanity as conquerors. They viewed them as predictable. And predictability, in a galaxy of volatile empires, was priceless. In private Vrax councils, panic replaced arrogance. Why do they not simply attack our capital? One general demanded. Because they do not need to, another replied grimly. They are dismantling us piece by piece. In the Concordium chamber, Ambassador Elena Marquez returned once more. Her tone remained even. Our objective remains unchanged, she said. Withdraw beyond recognized borders. Cease expansionist military doctrine. Submit to reparations review. A senior Concordium delegate asked the question echoing in every system. If the Imperium refuses? Marquez did not hesitate. Then we continue. There was no triumph in her voice. No hatred. Only inevitability. High above, the elder observed the shifting alliances and data flows. You thought them fragile, he addressed the chamber quietly. But fragility does not survive planetary extinction events. Fragility does not rebuild after self-inflicted global wars. He turned his ancient gaze toward the Vrax warlord. They are patient predators. The phrase struck harder than accusation. Because predators did not thrash wildly. They studied. They waited. They chose the precise moment to strike. Another alert flashed across the galactic display, Vrax fleets retreating from 2 contested sectors. Moments later, human gravitational signatures in those regions powered down. The message was unmistakable. Compliance brought survival. Defiance brought erasure. The galaxy had misjudged humanity because it had equated noise with strength. The loudest empires had always seemed dominant. Humanity had been quiet. Now the silence itself had become authority. Across hundreds of systems, leaders recalculated their diplomatic posture. No one laughed at Terran paperwork anymore. Because behind every signature now lay proof that humanity did not bluff. They remembered. They calculated. And when necessary, they enforced. The Vrax capital system, Drathkar, had never known invasion. It was the heart of the Imperium, fortified by layered defense grids, surrounded by concentric rings of shipyards, protected by the largest standing fleet in their recorded history. If humanity wished to end the war decisively, this was the target. Which was why, when the gravitational anomaly formed at the outer edge of the capital system, panic surged through every military channel simultaneously. Alarms blared. Defense cannons charged. Fleets scrambled into intercept formations. Across the Galactic Concordium, emergency feeds opened without authorization. Entire civilizations watched in real time. The distortion did not rush inward like the previous strikes. It expanded slowly. Deliberately. Passing through outer sensor arrays first. Every early warning satellite went dark. Then the outer defense platforms. They did not explode. They simply ceased functioning, metal compressed into inert fragments, reactors silenced before overload, weapons systems flattened beyond repair. Vrax capital ships opened fire into the distortion. Their plasma beams curved unnaturally and dissipated. Then the ripple reached the main fleet. One by one, engines failed. Targeting systems died. Weapon capacitors discharged harmlessly into vacuum. Ships remained intact, but powerless. Drathkar's planetary shield grid flared brightly in desperate activation. The distortion brushed against it. And the shield collapsed without shattering the planet beneath. The Vrax homeworld remained untouched. Cities stood. Atmosphere stable. Civilians unharmed. Only the instruments of war had been erased. For the first time in its imperial history, the Vrax capital was defenseless. Silence fell across the galaxy. Then a new signal overrode every frequency. Human origin. Ambassador Elena Marquez appeared, not from Earth, but projected directly into the space above Drathkar's powerless fleet. Her voice carried across the system. This ends now. Behind her, a Terran fleet finally revealed itself, not vast, not overwhelming in number, but strategically positioned beyond effective retaliation range. We have demonstrated capability, she continued. We have demonstrated restraint. Visual feeds zoomed in on intact Vrax cities, untouched civilian districts. We do not seek your extinction. The Vrax warlord, broadcasting from a darkened command platform, stared upward in disbelief. You could destroy us, he said hoarsely. Yes, Marquez replied. The simplicity of the answer chilled every observer. But we will not. A pause. Withdraw all expansion fleets beyond contested territories. Submit to reparations arbitration under Concordium oversight. Dismantle offensive staging grounds along our borders. Her gaze hardened. Agree, and your capital remains standing. The distortion field pulsed once, subtly. A reminder. Across the chamber of the Ketheri Dominion, the elder closed his eyes briefly in acknowledgement. This was the final demonstration. Not annihilation. Control. In Vrax command channels, internal debate erupted. Some demanded continued resistance. Others, staring at dead weapons and powerless fleets, understood the truth. There would be no glorious last stand. No victory through sheer aggression. The Imperium had met a force it could neither intimidate nor overwhelm. After a long, fractured silence, the Vrax warlord transmitted on open frequency. The Imperium will withdraw. Across the galaxy, tension released like a held breath. The gravitational distortion receded. Human fleet signatures remained, but did not advance. Drathkar's skies cleared. Weapons stayed silent. For the first time since Orion burned, humanity had spoken not through absence, but through undeniable superiority. And they had chosen mercy. In the observation tier of the Concordium chamber, the elder addressed the assembly one final time. Power, he said softly, is not proven by destruction. His gaze lingered on the intact Vrax homeworld. It is proven by restraint when destruction is possible. The galaxy had witnessed annihilation before, but never had it witnessed such absolute dominance, withheld. And in that restraint, humanity's true strength was revealed. When the distortions finally receded and human fleets returned to Sol, the galaxy exhaled, but cautiously. The Vrax Imperium, humbled yet alive, began dismantling their forward fleets and disbanding expansionist councils. Reparations were negotiated under Concordium supervision, and minor species that had long suffered under Vrax rule finally found protection. Humanity did not occupy conquered territory. They did not celebrate. They rebuilt. Orion colony survivors were relocated and assisted. Systems damaged by Vrax aggression received humanitarian aid, often staffed by human engineers who remained calm, efficient, and unwavering in their mission. Across the galaxy, the perception of humans shifted. No longer were they the fragile diplomats or the soft-boned primates the Vrax had mocked. Instead, they were respected, sometimes feared, but always acknowledged. Power, the galaxy realized, did not require thunderous fleets or flashy displays. It required patience, calculation, and moral clarity. In the Galactic Concordium, the elder of the Ketheri Dominion addressed the assembly one last time regarding humanity. They did not rage, he said. They did not seek vengeance beyond justice. They delivered consequence. And in doing so, they taught the galaxy an uncomfortable truth: strength is measured by restraint, patience, and the capacity to endure oneself. Ambassador Elena Marquez, representing humanity, spoke softly from the chamber's central dais. We did not ask to be feared, she said. We asked to be remembered. Our actions were measured, not emotional. We will continue to uphold peace, but let there be no doubt, humanity will enforce its boundaries when threatened. Even the Vrax warlord, once prideful and arrogant, acknowledged the truth. In private channels, he admitted the lesson learned: a species that survives itself is a species no empire can predict or control. In the quiet of deep space, human fleets resumed normal patrols. Star systems once thought vulnerable now thrived under the silent protection of humanity's measured vigilance. And so the galaxy changed. Old alliances fractured. New coalitions formed. The standard of respect had shifted, not toward brute force, but toward intelligence, patience, and strategic foresight. High in observation, the elder's final note in his records captured the essence of what had occurred. Humanity did not seek vengeance. Humanity delivered consequence. And from that day forward, every species, great or small, listened when humanity spoke. The stars themselves seemed to acknowledge it, as if the galaxy had collectively learned a new rhythm, that restraint could be the loudest voice of all. Humanity had finally arrived, not with war cries, but with undeniable presence.